It is I, your main man, and today I return to do the 13th installment of Vampire the Masquerade Clans Revisited. Topic: Lasombra, the silky gossamer of night's wind, inky black shadows that curl around the form of those that displease them. They know many secrets and ply great destinies in their political games that stretch upon eons. The clan itself is highly hinged upon respect, where respect must be due. Social missteps and faux pas can be utterly unforgivable in the dark society of the Lasombra, and simple shame is often not enough. It is those who make the mistakes that find themselves rended, body and soul, exsanguinated, and left for dawn's merciless embrace on even the slightest of missteps. The political game the Lasombra play is unparalleled by the other clans, for there are so many possible perils and footfalls that await this unforgiving society, and the fact that you can very likely, as a blooded Lasombra, find yourself far less than immortal greatly strengthens their cause. Social Darwinist, to be sure, Lasombra ply their trade in the dark places of the Catholic Church and in the back of the most modern of scientific laboratories, applying science, philosophy, religion, and any other bastion of potential political power. There you may find the coiling tendrils and shadows of the Lasombra quickly at work. Their minds are very sharp, their tongues perhaps even sharper. They themselves are almost walking vampiric devils. They select the best among humanity to join their shadowy embraces. Their blood not easily given, not so much as many of the other groupings within the Sabbat. The anti-tribute for Lasombra are amongst the true Lasombra, amongst the founders, amongst those who went and did many reprehensible things on the behalf of their clan. Still, there are those very ancient old Lasombras that remember other different ways. The anti-tribute Lasombra, who look angrily with wrath upon those who blaspheme old ways with their rebelliousness. For that, after all, was merely another call, another will to power shown by the young, the impudent Lasombra that have come from their own blood, and these elders look down menacingly, angrily, back through time and ages past, as they dust themselves up from their old crypts and rise to extract their revenge. And the fear of that revenge is far more of a unifying factor, far more of a driving fear for Lasombra than any yellings of words, camarilla, or any other such thing. They fear the old ones who are true to the ways of the Lasombra and are not applying themselves to the bombastic, barbaric ways of the Sabbat. Yet there are many cabals and covens, secret societies upon secret societies, built in to secret societies, and that's really what you need to think about when you're putting together a vampire from Clan Lasombra. They are liars unparalleled, and the best liars are the ones that tell you the truth when you think it is false. You can find them in from any sort of walk of life that brought power with it. They have proven themselves in the mortal land, and as they snuff off the mortal coil, they prove themselves more. and you are pushed heavily in a society where the rewards for the slightest failures is death, horrendous death and great pain, as well as dishonorment. Sabbat are known to have vicious duels amongst themselves to prove their own power, one over the next. Even such things as vulgar as daublery duels, latching onto each other in front of others, providing spectacle and entertainment to find one unable to resist the strength, the physical presence of another, and find themselves turned to naught but dust upon the stone floors of the ancient castles in front of the other Lasombra that watch on with hedonistic dark pleasure. Lasombra themselves should come across as a twisted version of a moral person, changed and shaped in darkness to serve their own ends, still at the base line of themselves, thinking they are better, they are best, and their morals will serve them to gain the strength that they need in life. For after all, they are better, their ideas are the best, and the level of ego and hubris that exists amongst Lasombras is likely the highest amongst any of the clans of Vampire the Masquerade, which in of itself is saying a tremendous amount. Then again, the Lasombra are capable of very, very much. And when you're sculpting them in their aspect, you must remember they have their own fixers, their own assassins, their philosophers, their scientists, their politicians, their clergymen. They're individuals that at every stage of the game that is life, the game that is politics, the game that is power, and power over others for yourself, they work together, unified. And while they are unified, they are against each other. They are very capable of being a multitude of things to the same entity, to the same individual. Brother, mother, son, lover, murderer, and best friend. All is possible for a Lasombra, because it is all about the pieces on the board and making the best moves you can at that moment, and how you may leverage those moves to 3 moves ahead, to 3 moves ahead those, to 3 moves ahead of those. Always watching the board, always watching what it will become, and being on the cutting edge. There's a life that clearly rings with paranoia, with discomfort, with knowing those closest to you are the most likely to drive the knife deep inside you, the most likely to take your own blood. Still, what other choice do you have? Because you know the rabble that is out there beyond the Lasombra. Will you trust yourself to Bruja or Gangrel or to Je me sais? Of course not. They are all beneath you. But secretly, you know, there are many other Lasombra that are greater than you, that are smarter than you, that are more precise with their tongues, with their ploys, with their manipulations, with their tactics, antics, and politics. They're sharper. And you hate that. You hate yourself for being weak. You hate them for being stronger. And the only way to end that is with tides of blood, with fangs that gleam white under moonlight, with shadows that slink and lurk and come crawling, creeping, to pull down your adversary, to assert your own dominance, to let yourself know that no, you were the one that was stronger. Either that or find yourself face turning to ash. The Lasombra are best known for their discipline of obtenebration, the manipulation of shadows, of illuminescence, the quieting of light, the raising of darkness, the arms of Ahriman himself, pulling back from some ancient abyss to strangle, to rip apart, to deface, desecrate, and demolish those opponents that stand before you and send them to an eternity of damnation. You hear the strange things that whisper in the shadows. You touch into an ancient hell, all of its own making. Plane, a place of horror. And you are a conduit for that horror. It is not your power, after all, but the yawning power of something far more ancient and vastly more evil than you can contemplate. But you touch it, it rubs against you. It ebbs away what goodly spark of white there may be upon your soul, in tarnishing it and turning it black before shattering it utterly and leaving you as a husk to perform horrendous ancient tactics and rites and plans not your own. Because after all, that is the game, Vampire the Masquerade. You are the pawn. You are always someone's pawn. And whether you are a keeper or you believe yourself a king, there's always someone behind the hand that's behind the throne. They also possess dominate, the ability to look into one's eyes and command them, to master their brain and force it to do as they will. A discipline of tremendous power and use, as well as potence, the strength of the hand, of the arm, of the power. And while it is true that the way that they were sculpted into the game had a lot to do with the fact that Lasombra were essentially created afterwards, and yes, if you play a Dark Ages game, you will well see that Lasombra fit into that environment a lot more easily, with a greater degree of believability than they do as parts of the Sabbat. Not that you can't produce and bring about an excellent, interesting chronicle story with Sabbat, Lasombra, but were they face to face in the boardroom looking across at Ventrue and vying for dominance of domain and pushing themselves not to be a marginalized Sabbat in the shadows, but to be a prime mover and shaker of their knight's society in ages past. There are extremely interesting stories, you can say. For me, as if you have seen the video I did on remaking the clans for Vampire the Masquerade, I firmly have said and established that Lasombra should well be amongst the Camarilla, whereas say clans like Bruja and the Tremere should be amongst the Sabbat. That aside, there are a lot of interesting things you can do with them. You should think about that, though, when you put together Lasombra excellence and the ability, more importantly, to produce excellence in others' minds, to make them believe you are beyond their grasp in some form or fashion. After all, perception is what is the most important, and they take the respect and loyalty and the name of the clan extremely important, and you must not fail that. You must, to the outside, be stronger, be better, be royal. To be royalty of the night, of the velvet, beautiful skies where moon gleams down and touches white-skinned faces. It is in that these vampires come to life in the coiled shadows behind, watching, moving, and proving themselves to be worthy of the title of aristocracy of the night. And there are those that don't, but their stories aren't very long.